There is a lot going on, but it's all part of the progress. It looks confused.
I don't remember where anything goes. I'm gonna get lost in this house. Hey, what's up everybody? Today I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna build my LS engine in the corner of my garage using nothing but cheap tools and piece of wood as an engine stand. And I know that sounds pretty sketchy, but in reality it's actually, well, actually does sound a little bit sketchy now that I think about it. But I'm going to try to do everything by the book. I'm going to try to do it properly to make sure that this engine is bulletproof once I'm done with it. And even though this video is going to be a little bit more technical and targeted to somebody that's trying to do a job like this and just wants to find information on how to do things properly, I am going to try to edit it and make it enjoyable for the casual viewers as well. So now, enough talk, let's get to building this engine. Alright, so now that we got the engine in the garage, we're going to begin working on it. So let's get to it. Alright, so it'd be a lot easier if I had an engine stand, but I don't, so I'm gonna have to deal with this setup that I have right now and with the dock hairs being everywhere. Okay, so right now I'm just removing the oil pan because I have to add the actual gasket, but I'm also inspecting for any metal debris that might have been left at the bottom of the pan, so I'm gonna clean it up really well. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the rear main cover because the oil barvet has to be replaced, as well as the gasket and the seal. It was easier to go from the corners and kind of pull it out than to actually try to stab it. The funny thing is I didn't even know this part existed. If it wasn't for the forums, I wouldn't have replaced it, but it's a good upgrade to do just to keep the oil pressure at the proper spec. It's a nice machined aluminum, so I'm gonna go ahead and install it right now into the block. I'll just have to lube up the little seal and push it in, and it should go right in. Oh yeah. These vehicles have really tight oil clearances, and if you mess one of these covers up, it will leak from the corners. So the proper way to do it is you buy this alignment tool. It helps you align the rear main cover to the crankshaft, and once you have it aligned and bolted in properly, then you will use the alignment tool to help you push in the seal. Pro tip, do not torque the oil pan bolts just yet, just snug them up by hand. Would it be easier to get an engine stand? Probably, but am I gonna do it? I don't think so. This is a budget build. Another valuable piece of information that I found while doing this build is that a lot of people are going to tell you to use a carbide scraper in order to clean the old head gasket. I found that with the carbide scraper, it doesn't matter how gentle you are or what angle you hit it, you end up scraping the block like it did over here. So at first I practiced on the areas where the head gasket was not going to meet. My finger doesn't quite catch on it, so I'm not too worried about it. But either way, I just decided to go with the regular razor blade, just being really careful not to gouge the aluminum in the block. And I think it came out pretty good, so it should be ready for a head gasket. Alright, let's talk about the cam real quick. So this is the BTR Stage 2 cam for a naturally aspirated LS3. So this is a pretty mild cam. It's nothing crazy, nothing aggressive. I chose this cam because it makes really good power and also has really good drivability. Usually on big cams you have cam surges at lower RPMs, but with this cam that won't be a problem if the car is tuned properly. Also, when you have a really high lift cam, it puts more strain on the whole valve train. You may run into valve to piston clearance since it does have a lot of lift, so that's something to consider if you want to run a really big cam and you're going to get the heads machined. So these stock heads have a rectangular port on the intake side. They flow just enough CFM to use with this cam. I definitely don't have the need to port them. For the valve train, I went with the double titanium springs, also from BTR, and the chromoly push rods to keep everything nice and stable during high RPMs. In addition, I also ran the CHE Bruns training upgrade for the rocker arms. This is a nice addition because it's going to keep the top end really solid, just in case I have the need to rev my engine to the moon if I wanted to. Alright, so next up I'm going to install the cam plate. Got a new one and new bolts as well. Looks like they already have thread lockers, so I'm just gonna go ahead and torque them. 22 foot-pounds, of course, with the Harbor Freight torque wrench, but we should be fine. No, it wasn't. It wasn't just fine. When I was installing the dampener, everything was going just fine until it wasn't. Last night I faced one of the most stressing and heartbreaking things that has happened during this build. Unfortunately, when I was installing the timing chain dampener, my beautiful Harbor Freight torque wrench decided to stop clicking. Who would have guessed it? Harbor Freight torque wrench stopped working. I didn't see that coming. It just sucks that it happened to me while I was working on the block. I just went a little bit too far and ended up stretching the bolt on the timing chain dampener, and I also stripped out the block. And to finish it off, I also dropped the bolt into the oil pan through an oil gallery. So I actually ended up rage quitting that night, and I went straight to bed, and it was around 8 p.m. so that's how you know that engine kicked your ass. I wanted to attend a Mac Miller concert, and I just wanted to quit, and I wanted to pay somebody else to finish this build, but I learned from Jackie Chan, and I gotta do my own stunts, so I gotta stay strong and focus on this. So now I gotta find a way to fix the block, maybe chase the block and fix this little problem, and I also have to order a new timing chain dampener. But I successfully chased the threads. For the chain, we're gonna do a little science experiment. I have right here a brand new AC Delco OEM chain that I'm gonna be installing with the original sprockets. Maybe it'll be catastrophic engine failure like it says on the forums. I don't think anything's gonna happen, so I'm just gonna risk it. You might be wondering why even risk it, and the answer to that is because science, research. So we're just gonna go ahead and slap it on, see what happens. I bought a new OEM dry sump oil pump, which is the same for the LS3, LS7, and LS9s. Before installing the pump, I actually lubricated the internals using assembly lube, pouring it through the galleries, moving the gears, making sure that the oil flows through the whole entire pump. Alright, so there's this special plate that goes underneath here to line up the oil pump to make sure that it's completely flush with the block to prevent the oil pan gasket from leaking. I do not have that tool, but from Amazon I ordered a similar tool. So when you go on Amazon looking for the alignment kits, it's this 3-piece kit. One's for the rear cover and one's for the front cover, and then you also have the front timing cover alignment plate. I also bought another one that's a different style, and this one does go inside of the oil pump hole, so you just push it in and it will help the oil pump center itself. And now that you have this alignment tool and the bottom alignment tool, it's gonna have the perfect clearances you need to tighten the oil pan bolts, and it's gonna make sure everything's nice and center and you won't have any oil leaks. Now before I even install the lifters, I gotta make sure they're in good condition. I'm gonna check all of the rollers, make sure that there's no binding, lubricate it all the way around, and also in the little plunger where the pusher is going to be riding, tied to the surfaces where it's going to be contacting metal, and then we install them. So on the OEM style lifters, I heard it doesn't matter where the oil holes point to, but if you have an aftermarket lifter where the hole can face up and down while it's installing the bucket, make sure that it's pointing up. There you go. Okay, so right now I'm struggling on a part that I shouldn't even be struggling with. I have the alignment tool set up and it does not line up well. It doesn't matter what I try, it doesn't line up perfectly. If I push this part against the block, then this thing gets stuck and it won't budge. I also attempted to install the rear cover, but I'm running into the same problem. As you guys saw before, I was struggling to try to line up the timing cover, and what I ended up doing in my case, since I'm using a new oil pan gasket, it's not compressed yet, even though it was torqued to spec beforehand, but it still wasn't as flush as it should be, and that's why it wasn't letting me align the timing cover properly. So what I ended up doing is I loosened all the oil pan bolts that I had previously torqued, and that gave me enough room to be able to install this thing properly without any binding on the alignment tool cover. Here we go. So what I'm going to do for the covers is I'm going to snug the bolts by hand. Go ahead and snug the ones from the oil pan at the bottom, then torque the cover bolts, and then torque the oil pan bolts last. Isn't that funny? The pilot bearing removal tool doesn't even fit. That's nice. Alright, I'm gonna try to work some magic. Oh, it worked. Impressive. So I made it work by using this and a little extension, made it go behind it, and I was able to pull it straight out. And now we got the old one looking very crusty, and when I put my finger in it, I can't even spin it. Basically we gotta freeze this thing so the metal shrinks a little bit, and that way we're able to pound it in. So I gotta put it upside down, if not it's not gonna work. Put the bearing, grab a 32mm socket. I'm gonna try to tap it in. should be fine like that. For my clutch kit, I went with the XCD Stage 1 organic clutch. It is very similar to the OEM. Since I'm not going to be pushing high horsepower, it should hold up just fine. I got this flywheel holder tool. We'll see if it works. It bolts up to where the starter is supposed to go, and it's going to allow me to torque the flywheel properly without it moving. Gonna finish it up 75. This is the proper way to install it. You install the clutch disc first with the hub pointing outside, and then you install the pressure plate. So it should be all ready now. So as you guys know, when stuff like this happens, you gotta end up replacing a lot of components. For example, the oil pump, something that I didn't know I had to replace, and also the oil cooler and oil cooler lines. This oil cooler is around $500 to $800. And I did not feel like spending that much money. So what I'm gonna do is I bought this little plate that I'm gonna install where the oil cooler lines go. This way I don't have to run an oil cooler, which is good as well, because when you're breaking in a brand new engine, there's gonna be a few metal particles that are gonna be flushed out during the first oil changes, and then I'll take it off and buy a new oil cooler and oil cooler lines. But as of now, everything looks like it's ready to go in the car. The block is assembled. I got some paper towels covering the head gasket mating surface, but other than that, it's ready to be installed. Alright, so this is going to be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this whole process. All the set of unfortunate events that occurred while I was working on the engine. If you're wondering why this build has been taking so long, saving money, saving all my paychecks to be able to buy all the parts that keep on stacking up constantly. And even though LS engines are fairly cheap, when you try to build something for performance or trying to buy OEM parts, it actually ends up being a little bit pricey. It's a little bit more exhausting trying to record everything and working on the car at the same time. I do want to put the information out there because that's how I was able to work on this car. So with that being said, I want to give a shout out to the budget builder and Watch Me Wrench. I wouldn't have had a clue on how to take things apart or how to install them properly even. So I would have definitely not made it this far. So big shout out to those guys that made those videos, and I hope this video is able to help somebody else. Not everything has gone smoother in this journey, and I've worked really hard, but sometimes hard work is just not enough. Sometimes you also need luck to come and help you out. Hopefully we get lucky and we're able to get this car running pretty soon. I cannot wait to get behind the steering wheel and just feel the performance once again. This was the rebuild, and now the revival's coming, so get ready.